52. That was the number of women who had walked past Daehyun Choi in the last hour, each one wearing a dress that cost more than a mid-sized sedan and a smile that could cut glass. He stood in the center of the Waldorf Astoria's Grand Ballroom, a monolithic figure in a bespoke midnight blue tuxedo, holding a crystal flute of champagne that he had no intention of drinking. To the untrained eye, the gala was a charitable evening dedicated to pediatric cardiology. To Daehyun, the heir apparent to the shadowy, sprawling Choi syndicate that quietly managed half of New York's logistics and specialized security, this wasn't a party. It was a Shark Tank. And the blood in the water was his bachelorhood. At 28, Daehyun had the kind of face that stopped traffic and the kind of reputation that cleared rooms. He had high cheekbones that seemed carved from cold marble, eyes the color of burnt espresso, and a silver-inked dragon coiling up his ribs, hidden beneath the starch of his dress shirt. He was bored. Lethally, violently bored. Beside him, Ji-hoon, his second-in-command and childhood best friend, checked his watch for the 10th time. 3 o'clock, Ji-hoon murmured, his lips barely moving. Daughter of the shipping king of Incheon. She's looking at you like you're a Wagyu steak, boss. She's looking at my inheritance, Ji-hoon, Daehyun corrected, his voice a low baritone rumble that vibrated with disinterest. And if she winks at me, I'm going to buy the building and evict everyone just so I can go home early. Your father is watching, Ji-hoon warned, nodding discreetly toward the VIP balcony. He expects you to pick a bride tonight. The merger with the Han clan depends on it. Daehyun's grip on the glass tightened. The merger was a polite term for a dynastic alliance designed to monopolize the eastern seaboard's shipping routes. His father, Chairman Choi, treated marriage like a corporate acquisition. Daehyun was just the asset to be traded. Let him watch, Daehyun said coldly. I'd rather marry a cactus. Less prickly conversation. Across the shimmering expanse of the ballroom, Zuri Banks was currently fantasizing about setting her shoes on fire. She was 26, broke, and currently invisible. Dressed in the severe black and white uniform of the catering staff, she balanced a tray of hors d'oeuvres that looked like microscopic art projects and tasted like salted cardboard. Zuri was a woman of many talents. She was an aspiring graphic novelist, a connoisseur of instant ramen, and possessed a tongue sharp enough to shave with, but currently, she was just staff. Smile, Zuri, her manager, a man with a clipboard and a Napoleonic complex, hissed as he breezed past. You look like you're planning a murder. I'm planning a revolution, Gary, Zuri muttered under her breath, adjusting the heavy tray. Starting with the destruction of whoever invented 4-inch heels for a standing shift. She navigated the sea of Manhattan's elite with the agility of a gazelle avoiding lions. She had 3 rules for surviving these gigs. Don't make eye contact, don't eat the leftovers where cameras can see you, and never, ever listen to the conversations. The last one was hard to follow, mostly because the conversations were hilariously vacuous. She passed a group of debutantes discussing the tragic scarcity of ethically sourced diamonds, rolling her eyes so hard she nearly saw her own brain. Zuri was trying to make her way back to the service corridor to inhale a glass of water when the crowd shifted. The air pressure in the room seemed to drop. A woman in a crimson gown that looked like it was made of liquid rubies was gliding toward the center of the room, flanked by 2 bodyguards. This was Min Ji-han, the rival heiress. The woman Daehyun was supposed to impress. Daehyun saw Min-ji approaching and suppressed a sigh that would have registered on a Richter scale. She was beautiful in the way a venomous snake was beautiful, vibrant, sleek, and advertising danger. She stopped in front of him, a waiter appearing instantly at her elbow with fresh drinks. Daehyun, Min-ji purred, taking 2 glasses. She dismissed the waiter and held one out to him. You look like you're attending a funeral. I am, Daehyun said dryly, not taking the glass yet. Ideally, my own boredoms. Drink with me, Min-ji said, stepping closer, her voice dropping to an intimate whisper that didn't reach her cold eyes. To the future. Our fathers have high hopes. Zuri was standing 5 feet away, trapped behind a large floral arrangement, waiting for Min-ji's entourage to move so she could pass. She watched the exchange with mild curiosity until she saw it. It was a sleight of hand so fast, so practiced, that anyone blinking would have missed it. Min-ji's pinky finger flicked over the rim of the glass she was offering Daehyun. A tiny, almost invisible pinch of powder fell into the champagne. It fizzed for a microsecond, a reaction Zuri recognized instantly. In her past life, before the student loans and the 3 jobs, Zuri had been a chemistry major. She knew that specific effervescence. That wasn't sugar. That was a paralytic. Not enough to kill, maybe, but enough to make someone pliable, confused, or publicly humiliated by collapsing. Oh, hell no, Zuri thought. She didn't know the guy in the tuxedo, but nobody deserved to be drugged by a woman wearing that much hairspray. Daehyun reached for the glass. His fingers were inches from the crystal stem. Zuri didn't think. She didn't calculate the risk to her job or her rent money. She just moved. She surged forward from behind the flowers, feigning a trip on the edge of the carpet. Whoa, she yelped a little too loudly. She launched herself into the space between them. The tray of intricate, sauce-heavy appetizers went airborne. Zuri collided with Daehyun's chest with the force of a linebacker, her hand swatting the poisoned champagne glass out of Minji's hand. Crash. The sound of shattering crystal silenced the orchestra. The ballroom froze. Daehyun stood there, his Tom Ford tuxedo now covered in béarnaise sauce and crushed crab cakes. The poisoned champagne had splashed all over Minji's crimson dress, soaking the silk. Oh my god. Zuri gasped, pulling back and doing her best impression of a clumsy idiot. She grabbed a napkin from her belt and started frantically dabbing at Daehyun's lapel, smearing the sauce further. I am so sorry, sir. The carpet. It came out of nowhere. It attacked me. You incompetent little, Minji shrieked, looking down at her ruined gown. Do you know how much this costs? Security. Daehyun didn't look at his ruined suit. He didn't look at Minji. He was looking down at the woman who had just tackled him. She was smaller than him, with skin that glowed like polished bronze under the chandeliers and hair pulled back in a curly puff that defied gravity. She was frantically wiping his chest, but when she looked up, her eyes weren't filled with the terror he was used to seeing in people who crossed him. They were dancing with amusement. Stop, Daehyun said, his voice cutting through Minji's shrieking. He caught Zuri's wrist, stopping her aggressive napkin work. Zuri froze. His grip was warm, firm, and calloused. She looked up, ready to be fired, ready to be yelled at. But Daehyun was staring at her with an intensity that made her breath hitch. He leaned in, lowering his head so only she could hear. You saw the powder, he murmured. It wasn't a question. Zuri's eyes widened slightly. The clumsy facade slipped for a fraction of a second. I don't know what you're talking about, she whispered back, her voice sharp. I'm just a klutz. But for the record, paralytics and champagne? Tacky mix. Ruins the vintage. Daehyun felt a shockwave go through him. It wasn't just attraction. It was the adrenaline of recognition. In a room full of people pretending to be civilized, he had just found the only other person who saw the violence hidden in plain sight. Get her out of here. Minji was screaming now, pointing a manicured talon at Zuri. I want her fired. I want her blacklisted. Gary the manager materialized, looking like he was about to have a stroke. You. Leave. No. Don't even clock out, just go. Zuri pulled her wrist from Daehyun's grip. Copy that, Gary. Pleasure doing business. She shot a quick, indecipherable look at Daehyun, half warning, half smirk, and turned on her heel. She didn't run. She power-walked with dignity, despite the fact that she was leaving a crime scene of crab cakes. Go after her, Daehyun said to Ji-hoon, not taking his eyes off Zuri's retreating back. The waitress. Ji-hoon blinked. Boss, you're covered in fish sauce. We need to get you to the suite. I don't care about the suit, Daehyun snapped, watching the service doors swing shut behind her. She didn't trip Ji-hoon. She intercepted. That glass Minji handed me was spiked. She took the hit. Ji-hoon's expression went from confused to deadly serious in an instant. The Han family tried to move on you here? In neutral territory? Apparently, Daehyun wiped a smear of sauce from his lapel, his eyes cold but his mouth twitching with a ghost of a smile. And a waiter with a béarnaise sauce obsession just saved my life. Find her. I want to know who she is, where she lives, and why she knows what a spiked drink looks like. And then Daehyun said, unbuttoning his ruined jacket and tossing it onto a passing waiter's tray, I'm going to thank her. The next morning, Zuri felt like she had gone 10 rounds with a cement mixer. Her feet were throbbing remnants of the night before, and her bank account balance was glaring at her from her phone screen, $42.18. Getting fired from the Waldorf gig meant she was short on rent for the Brooklyn loft she shared with Chloe. "You got fired for tripping?" Chloe asked, leaning against the counter of the tiny, sun-drenched coffee shop where Zuri was working her opening shift. Chloe was a law student with a caffeine addiction and a protective streak a mile wide. "I got fired for tactical tripping," Zuri corrected, steaming milk with aggressive vigor. "And for saving some rich, arrogant Chable prince from getting roofied by his date. Honestly, I should send him a bill for bodyguard services." "Wait," Chloe lowered her sunglasses. "You saved a rich guy? Did you get his number? Did he offer to pay your tuition? Did he fall in love with you instantly?" "He looked at me like I was a puzzle he wanted to take apart." Zuri shuddered, wiping down the espresso machine. "It was intense. And creepy. He had these eyes. Look, it doesn't matter. I'll never see him again. Men like that don't come to Bushwick." The bell above the cafe door chimed. "Welcome to," Zuri started, looking up with her customer service grimace. The words died in her throat. Standing in the doorway, looking entirely too large and too expensive for the eclectic, plant-filled coffee shop, was Daehyun. He wasn't wearing a tuxedo today. He was wearing a black leather jacket over a charcoal t-shirt, dark denim, and combat boots. He looked less like a prince and more like a high-fashion mercenary. The cafe went silent. Even the espresso machine seemed to hiss in reverence. Daehyun took off his sunglasses, his dark gaze sweeping the room before locking onto Zuri behind the counter. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me," Zuri whispered. Chloe looked from Zuri to Daehyun and back again, her jaw dropping. Is that the crab cake prince?" "He prefers Daehyun," he said, crossing the room in 3 long strides. He stopped at the counter, resting his hands on the worn wood. Up close, Zuri noticed he looked tired, shadows bruising the skin under his eyes, but it only made him look more devastating. "How did you find me?" Zuri demanded, crossing her arms over her apron. She grabbed a portafilter like a weapon. "If you're here to sue me for the dry cleaning bill, I have $40 and a bus pass. Take your pick." Daehyun huffed a soft laugh, a sound that seemed rusty, as if he didn't use it often. "I have plenty of suits," Zuri banks. "I'm not here for the dry cleaning." "Stalker," she accused, narrowing her eyes. "You looked up my file? That's illegal." "Probably. I should call the police." "I own the security firm that handles the Waldorf's background checks," Daehyun said simply, as if discussing the weather. "And I'm here because you ran away before I could finish our conversation." "We didn't have a conversation," Zuri countered, her heart hammering against her ribs. "We had a collision. And then I got fired. So, technically, you owe me a job." "Done," Daehyun said immediately. Zuri blinked. "What?" "I'll hire you. Double your rate at the Waldorf." "Triple it," Daehyun said, his eyes searching hers. "But first, I need coffee. Black. No poison, please." Zuri stared at him. He was insane. Beautiful, rich, and completely insane. She turned to the machine, her hands shaking slightly as she ground the beans. "You can't just walk in here and offer me a job. You don't even know me." "I know you're brave," Daehyun said, his voice dropping to that low rumble that vibrated through the counter. "I know you're observant. And I know you dislike Min Ji-han, which makes you a person of excellent taste." Zuri slammed the coffee cup onto the saucer and slid it across the counter. $4. "And I'm not for sale." Daehyun took a sip, his eyes never leaving her face. "Everyone is for sale, Zuri. It's just a matter of currency. Some want money. Some want power. What do you want?" "I want to finish my shift without a panic attack," she retorted. "And I want you to stop looking at me like I'm a variable in a math equation." "I'm looking at you," Daehyun said softly, "because you're the first unpredictable thing that has happened to me in 10 years. The air between them crackled. It was thick with tension, unspoken questions, and a chemistry that was bordering on volatile. Chloe, sensing the moment, grabbed her latte and backed away slowly, mouthing, "Call me later," to Zuri. Daehyun reached into his jacket pocket. Zuri flinched instinctively. He paused, noting the reaction, and slowly withdrew a sleek, black card. He placed it on the counter. "Dinner," he said. "Tonight. There's a quiet place in the village. No models. No poisoning attempts. Just food. I don't date customers, Zuri said, though her resolve was melting like the ice in the display case. I'm not a customer, Daehyun said, turning to leave. I'm a debt collector. You saved my life, Zuri. That creates a bond, whether you like it or not. I intend to repay it. He walked out the door, the bell chiming cheerfully behind him, leaving Zuri staring at the black card. It had no logo, just a name and a number embossed in silver. Before we proceed, smash that subscribe button to know what happens next. You do not want to miss the chaos that is about to unfold. Zuri picked up the card. Her fingers tingled where she touched it. I am in so much trouble, she whispered to the empty cafe. The restaurant Daehyun picked was not a quiet place. It was the quiet place, an exclusive, hidden speakeasy behind an unmarked steel door in the West Village that required a retina scan to enter. Zuri, wearing the only nice dress she owned, a vintage emerald green slip dress she'd thrifted and tailored herself, felt like an imposter. Daehyun was waiting at a corner booth, shadowed and private. When he stood up to greet her, the air left Zuri's lungs. He was wearing a black button-down shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal muscular forearms and more of those intricate, dangerous tattoos. You came, he said, sounding genuinely surprised. I was hungry, Zuri lied, sliding into the booth. And I googled the menu. The truffle fries sounded life-changing. They are, Daehyun signaled the waiter. But I think you're here because you're curious. About why a crime lord, logistics heir, is interested in a waitress? Zuri raised an eyebrow. Yeah, it's a bit of a mystery. Is this a Pretty Woman situation? Because I don't do wigs. Daehyun laughed again, a full, genuine sound this time. You have a sharp tongue, Zuri banks. It's a defense mechanism. Prevents people from getting too close. Why do you need to keep people away? Because in this city, Zuri leaned forward, her eyes flashing, people only come close when they want to take something. My time, my energy, my dignity. I don't have much left to give. Daehyun's face sobered. He looked at her with a profound sadness that seemed centuries old. I understand that, he said quietly. Better than you know. Over the next 2 hours, the walls came down. Not all at once, but brick by brick. They bonded over a shared hatred of pretension and a surprising mutual love for old kung fu movies. Zuri learned that Daehyun played the cello when he thought no one was listening and that he hated the family business with a burning passion he could barely conceal. Daehyun learned that Zuri was an artist who sketched on napkins because canvas was too expensive and that she supported her mother back in Oakland. They were laughing about the absurdity of the gala when Daehyun's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it and the warmth instantly evaporated from his face. His eyes went cold, the predator returning to the surface. What is it? Zuri asked, sensing the shift. My father, Daehyun said, his voice tight. He knows I'm here. He knows I'm with you. Zuri felt a chill run down her spine. Is that bad? It complicates things. Daehyun looked at her, and for the first time, she saw fear in his eyes. Not for himself, but for her. Zuri, my world, it's not safe. Being near me is not safe. You tell me this after we eat the truffle fries? Zuri tried to joke, but her voice wavered. I'm serious. Daehyun reached across the table, covering her hand with his. His touch was electric, grounding. Minji was just the beginning. If my father thinks you're a distraction, he will try to remove you. I need you to understand what you're walking into. I'm not afraid of your father, Zuri said, though her heart was pounding. I've dealt with landlords in Brooklyn. I can handle a grumpy old man. He's not grumpy, Zuri. He's lethal. Daehyun tightened his grip. But I won't let him touch you. I promise. Don't make promises you can't keep, tough guy, Zuri whispered. I keep my promises, Daehyun said intensely. That's why I have to tell you the truth. All of it. About what happened last night. About the powder. You said it was Minji. It was, Daehyun said. But Minji doesn't move without approval. My father, he sanctioned it. Zuri pulled her hand back, shock washing over her. Your father tried to drug you? To control me, Daehyun corrected. To force the engagement. If I had passed out, I would have woken up in her bed with photographers outside the door. The scandal would have forced the marriage. That is the man I deal with. That is the blood in my veins. He looked at her, waiting for her to run. Waiting for the disgust. Instead, Zuri reached out and took his hand back. Well, she said softly. It sounds like you need a better team. Good thing I'm looking for a job. Daehyun stared at her, stunned. You're staying. I haven't had dessert yet. Zuri smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that made Daehyun feel like he was seeing the sun for the first time in years. And I don't like bullies. Even rich ones. Just as Daehyun was about to lean in, just as the air between them shimmered with the promise of a kiss that would shatter both their worlds, the front door of the speakeasy burst open. It wasn't the paparazzi. It wasn't the police. 3 men in dark suits walked in. They weren't staff. They moved with the synchronized, predatory grace of trained killers. And they were heading straight for their booth. Daehyun was on his feet in a microsecond, shoving Zuri behind him. Jihoon said the perimeter was secure, he hissed. Who are they? Zuri asked, grabbing a steak knife from the table. Not my father's men, Daehyun said, his body coiling like a spring. These are worse. These are the cleanup crew. The restaurant erupted into chaos, but it was a silent, terrifying kind of chaos. The 3 men didn't scream or shout, they simply moved, knocking over tables with efficient brutality to clear a path to the booth. Kitchen, Daehyun commanded, grabbing Zuri's wrist. He didn't wait for her to agree. He hauled her out of the booth just as the first man lunged, a blade flashing in the low light. Daehyun didn't panic. He pivoted, using the momentum of the attacker against him, slamming the man's arm into the heavy oak pillar of the booth. There was a sickening thud of impact, and the knife clattered to the floor. But the other 2 were closing in. Go! Daehyun roared, shoving Zuri toward the swinging kitchen doors. I am not leaving you with the Doom Squad. Zuri yelled back. She grabbed the nearest weapon available, a heavy, ceramic pepper grinder the size of a baseball bat. As the second attacker reached for Daehyun's exposed back, Zuri swung. She connected with the man's shoulder, hard. He grunted, stumbling sideways, his focus shifting from Daehyun to the woman in the emerald dress, who looked ready to commit a felony. You brought a pepper grinder to a knife fight? Daehyun shouted, ducking a punch and delivering a precision kick to his attacker's solar plexus. It was the only thing within reach. Zuri retorted, backing up as the man she'd hit glared at her with lethal intent. And it's fresh cracked. Very spicy. Daehyun grabbed a bottle of expensive red wine from a neighboring table and smashed it against the wall, creating a jagged glass barrier. Zuri, kitchen, now. This time, she listened. They burst through the double doors into the steamy, frantic atmosphere of the kitchen. Chefs shouted, pans clattered. Daehyun didn't stop. He navigated the maze of stainless steel prep tables like he had the blueprints memorized. They burst out the back alley door just as the heavy thud of bodies hitting the door behind them signaled they had about 3 seconds of lead time. Daehyun's black sedan was parked in the alley, the engine already idling, a feature of the remote start he'd triggered from his pocket. He threw Zuri into the passenger seat and vaulted over the hood to get behind the wheel. Buckle up, he said, shifting gears before his door was even fully closed. Where are we going? Zuri gasped, her hands shaking as she fumbled with the seatbelt. The police? The police are 20 minutes away, Daehyun said, swerving onto the main road, tires screeching as he wove through the sluggish Manhattan traffic. These men will have us boxed in by then. We're going off the grid. I have a shift at the cafe tomorrow. Zuri yelled, hysteria bubbling up in her throat. I can't go off the grid. I have a cat. Chloe will think I've been kidnapped. You have been kidnapped, Daehyun said grimly, checking the rearview mirror. A black SUV was tearing through traffic behind them, ignoring red lights. Technically. But I prefer to call it aggressive protective custody. I hate you, Zuri said, bracing herself against the dashboard as Daehyun took a corner at a speed that defied physics. Focus on hating the men trying to run us off the road, Daehyun advised. He tapped the console screen. Jihoon. Status. Jihoon's voice filled the cabin, tense and breathless. Boss, I'm seeing the footage. Those aren't syndicate men. They're moving like mercenaries. Private contractors. Identify them, Daehyun ordered. And clear the safe house in Queens. We're coming in hot. Queens. Zuri looked at him. You're taking me to Queens? Nobody looks for a billionaire in Queens, Daehyun said, his eyes narrowing as the SUV behind them bumped their bumper. The jolt sent Zuri's phone flying from her lap. Hold on, Daehyun said, his voice dropping an octave. He slammed on the brakes. It was a counterintuitive move. The SUV behind them, expecting a chase, couldn't react in time. It swerved to avoid rear-ending them, smashing into a row of parked construction barrels. Plastic and water exploded everywhere. Dae-hyun gunned the engine, shooting forward through the gap he'd created, leaving the mercenaries tangled in orange plastic and confusion. They drove in silence for 10 minutes, weaving through side streets until they were sure they weren't being followed. Zuri finally exhaled a long, shaky sound. "You're insane," she whispered. You're actually insane." Effective, Dae-hyun corrected, though his grip on the steering wheel was white-knuckled. "Are you hurt? Physically?" "No. Mentally? I'm going to need therapy. Expensive therapy. Which you are paying for." Dae-hyun glanced at her, and the ghost of a smile touched his lips. Add it to the tab. The safe house wasn't a house. It was a defunct textile factory in Long Island City that Dae-hyun had converted into a fortress. They pulled into a hidden garage, the heavy steel door rattling shut behind them, sealing out the world. The interior was stark, industrial, and surprisingly warm. Exposed brick, plush leather furniture, and a wall of monitors that were currently dark. Dae-hyun killed the engine and sat there for a moment, the silence ringing in their ears. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. He didn't look at her. "I told you it wasn't safe. I should have walked away the moment you smiled at me." Zuri looked at him, the profile of a man who carried the weight of an empire he hated. She reached out, her hand hovering before resting gently on his shoulder. "Hey, you didn't invite them to dinner. And for the record, your driving is terrifying, but your right hook is decent." Dae-hyun turned to her, and the vulnerability in his eyes broke her heart. "I almost got you killed." "Almost doesn't count," Zuri said firmly. "Now, do you have any food in this fortress?" "Because we left the truffle fries, and I'm about to commit a crime due to low blood sugar." Dae-hyun let out a breath that sounded like a laugh. "I think there's ramen." "Instant ramen?" Zuri's eyes lit up. "Okay, Mr. Billionaire. Now you're speaking my language." An hour later, the tension had bled out of the room, replaced by a strange, intimate quiet. They sat on the floor of the living area, bowls of spicy noodles between them, the city lights flickering in the distance through the high windows. "My brother," Zuri said suddenly, breaking the silence. She was tracing the pattern of the wood floor with her finger. "He didn't just die in a gang war. He was running from something. He called me the night it happened. He was scared. He said he'd taken something he shouldn't have, something that would set us up for life if he could just sell it." Dae-hyun put his bowl down, his full attention on her. "What was it?" "I don't know," Zuri shrugged, her voice tight. "He never told me. He just said he hid it. Then he was gone. The police called it a territorial dispute. Case closed. But I always wondered. That's why you hate my world," Dae-hyun realized. "Not just the violence. The secrets. The waste," Zuri corrected, looking at him. "The waste of potential. My brother was brilliant. He could have been an engineer. Instead, he was a statistic. I look at you, Dae-hyun, and I see someone who could change the world, but you're stuck managing a legacy of blood." "I'm trying to change it," Dae-hyun said, moving closer. "I'm trying to turn the ship around. But it's slow. And tonight proves I might not be fast enough." "Then run faster," Zuri whispered. They were inches apart now. The air was thick with everything they hadn't said. Dae-hyun reached out, his fingers grazing her cheek, tucking a loose curl behind her ear. His hand lingered there, cupping her jaw, his thumb brushing her lower lip. "Zuri," he breathed, his voice rough. "You make me want to burn it all down. The legacy, the empire, everything. Just to keep you safe." "Then do it," she challenged softly. "Burn it down." He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, a collision of fear and longing and adrenaline. Zuri made a soft sound against his mouth, her hands tangling in his hair, pulling him closer. It was a kiss that tasted of survival. Dae-hyun pulled her into his lap, his arms wrapping around her like iron bands, as if he could physically shield her from the reality outside these walls. The world outside faded away. There was no syndicate, no assassins, no debt. Just the heat of his skin, the frantic beat of their hearts, and the overwhelming realization that they were in this, whatever this was, together. The lights of the city blurred as he lifted her, carrying her toward the bedroom, the shadows swallowing them whole, leaving only the soft, unspoken promise that for tonight, they were safe. Before we proceed, smash that subscribe button to know what happens next. The twist coming up is going to change everything you think you know about Zuri's past. Morning arrived with the harsh reality of sunlight streaming through industrial windows. Zuri woke up wrapped in high thread count sheets alone. Panic flared for a microsecond before she smelled coffee. She found Daehyun in the main room, fully dressed, staring at the wall of monitors which were now active. He was speaking into his phone in rapid-fire Korean, his face a mask of cold fury. He hung up as soon as he saw her, his expression softening instantly. "Coffee," he said, pointing to a mug on the table. "And clothes. I had Jihoon drop off a bag. Your size. Don't ask how he knows." "Jihoon knows everything," Zuri muttered, grabbing the coffee. She felt a blush rise to her cheeks as she remembered the night before, the way Daehyun had looked at her, the way he had touched her with such reverence. "So, did we figure out who the mystery ninjas were?" Daehyun's face darkened. "Yes. And no." He tapped a key on the keyboard, and a grainy image from the restaurant's security feed froze on the screen. It showed one of the attackers. Daehyun zoomed in on the man's neck. A small, distinctive tattoo of a spider web was visible. "The Spider Clan?" Zuri asked, squinting. "That sounds like a comic book villain." "They're worse," Daehyun said grimly. "They're brokers. Information traders. They don't do hits for territory or respect. They do it for data. Someone hired them to retrieve something." "Retrieve what?" "You." Daehyun turned to her, and the look on his face sent a chill straight to Zuri's bones. "No, Zuri. Not me." He walked over to her, his movements cautious. "The footage shows them entering the restaurant. They didn't look at me. They didn't look at the exits. They were looking at you." Zuri almost dropped her mug. "Me? I'm a barista. I have negative net worth. Why would high-end mercenaries want me?" "Because of your brother," Daehyun said. Jihoon dug deeper into the police report from 5 years ago. "Your brother wasn't just a bystander. He was the safecracker. A legend on the streets. Rumor was, before he died, he stole a ledger. A digital key containing the banking codes for half the underworld in the tri-state area." Zuri shook her head, backing away. "No, that's ridiculous. Malik was a kid. He worked at a garage. He was a genius, Zuri." "You said it yourself," Daehyun pressed gently. "The syndicate, my father, everyone has been looking for that ledger for 5 years. They thought it died with him. But if the Spider Clan is after you, they think I have it," Zuri whispered, horror dawning. "Do you?" Daehyun asked. "Did he leave you anything? A drive? A file? A weird email?" "Nothing," Zuri shouted. "He left me a box of old comic books and a broken watch." Daehyun froze. "A watch. A cheap digital watch. It never worked. I kept it because it was his." "Where is it?" Daehyun's voice was urgent. It's in my jewelry box. At the apartment." Zuri's eyes widened. "Oh my god. Chloe, if they went to my apartment." "We have to go." Daehyun was already moving, grabbing his keys. "If the Spider Clan thinks that watch is the key, they will tear your apartment apart. And anyone inside it." The drive back to Brooklyn was a blur of terrified silence. Zuri called Chloe 5 times. Straight to voicemail. "She's probably in class," Zuri reasoned, her voice trembling. "Law students turn their phones off. She's fine. She has to be fine." Daehyun didn't answer. He was driving with a focus that was terrifying, weaving through traffic like a man possessed. When they pulled up to Zuri's building, a converted warehouse in Bushwick, the front door was hanging off its hinges. "Stay in the car," Daehyun ordered, reaching under his seat and pulling out a handgun. "Not a chance," Zuri said, unbuckling. "That's my best friend." They moved up the stairwell, weapons drawn, Daehyun with his pistol, Zuri clutching a tire iron she'd found in the back seat. The door to 4B was smashed open. The apartment was a wreck. Furniture overturned, cushions slashed, books torn from shelves. "Chloe!" Zuri screamed, rushing inside. "Clear," Daehyun announced from the bedroom, holstering his weapon. "Nobody's here. No blood. No struggle signs." Zuri ran to her bedroom. Her jewelry box was dumped on the floor. Cheap earrings and necklaces were scattered everywhere. But the watch, the clunky, black digital watch Malik had worn every day, was gone. They took it, Zuri whispered, sinking to her knees amidst the debris. They took the watch. And they took Chloe, Daehyun said from the doorway. He was holding a piece of paper he'd found taped to the refrigerator. Zuri scrambled up, snatching the note. It was written in elegant, sharp handwriting on expensive stationery. We have the key, but it's encrypted. We need the sister to unlock it. Bring her to the docks, Pier 19. Midnight. Come alone, Daehyun. Or the roommate becomes a headline. Minji. Zuri stared at the name. Minji? The girl in the red dress? The heiress? She's not just an heiress, Daehyun said, his face twisting into a mask of pure rage. She's the head of the Spider clan. Zuri gasped. Your fiancé? The one your father wanted you to marry? She runs the mercenaries. She plays the part of the spoiled princess perfectly, Daehyun said, crumpling the note in his fist. But behind the scenes, she's been buying up leverage. She didn't want to marry me for the alliance, Zuri. She wanted to marry me to get close enough to find the ledger. She's been playing everyone. My father. Her father. Me. She has Chloe, Zuri said, her voice turning hard, the fear evaporating into cold determination. She has my friend. We're going to get her back, Daehyun vowed. I'll call in every favor. I'll bring the entire Choice Syndicate down on Pier 19. No, Zuri said. She looked at Daehyun, and her expression had changed. The waitress was gone. The survivor was here. The note says come alone. If we bring an army, Chloe dies. We do this her way. Zuri, you can't. I'm not asking for permission, Daehyun, Zuri interrupted. She walked over to the scattered remains of her brother's things and picked up a torn comic book. My brother was a genius, right? He built that watch. But Minji is right about one thing. It is encrypted. And she can't open it. Can you? Daehyun asked. Zuri looked up, a dark, dangerous smile playing on her lips, a mirror of the smile that had captivated him at the gala, but sharper. Malik taught me everything he knew. Zuri lied, or maybe she wasn't lying. I don't need to open it. I just need Minji to think I can. We're going to Pier 19. And we're going to take back what's ours. Daehyun looked at her fierce, loyal, and terrifyingly brave, and fell in love with her all over again. Okay, he said, checking the clip of his gun. Let's go get your roommate. But as they walked out the door, Daehyun's phone buzzed. A text message. He glanced at it, and his blood ran cold. It was from his father, Chairman Choi. I know where you are going. Don't be a fool. Minji isn't working alone. Watch your back, son. The knife comes from the hand you hold. Daehyun looked at Zuri's back as she marched down the stairs. The text made no sense. The hand you hold? Was his father trying to plant out? Or was there one more layer to this game that Daehyun hadn't seen yet? He holstered his phone and followed her into the dark. The night was far from over. Pier 19 was a graveyard of rusted metal and shipping containers, shrouded in the thick, suffocating fog rolling off the Hudson River. The air smelled of salt, diesel, and impending violence. Daehyun parked the sedan behind a stack of crates, killing the lights. Stay behind me, he murmured, checking his weapon one last time. If things go south, you run. You don't look back. You don't try to be a hero. You just run. I'm wearing sneakers, Zuri whispered, tightening her laces. I'm always ready to run. But I'm not leaving without Chloe. They moved through the shadows of the shipping yard, the silence heavy and oppressive. In the center of the pier, under the harsh glare of a portable floodlight, a tableau was set. Chloe was tied to a folding chair, duct tape over her mouth, eyes wide with terror. Standing over her was Minji, looking impeccably bored in a white trench coat that remained spotlessly clean despite the grime of the docks. Flanking her were 4 mercenaries, the elite of the Spider clan. You're late, Minji called out, her voice echoing off the metal containers. She didn't shout. She didn't have to. I expected better punctuality from a Choi. Daehyun stepped into the light, hands raised to show he was unarmed, though the pistol was tucked into the back of his waistband. Zuri stepped out beside him, clutching the cheap plastic watch in her hand like a grenade. Traffic was murder, Zuri quipped, her voice surprisingly steady. Unlike you, Minji, we don't have a helicopter. Minji's eyes snapped to Zuri. The waitress. Still trying to play in the big leagues. Do you have the key? I have it, Zuri held up the watch. But you let Chloe go first. That's not how leverage works, darling, Minji signaled one of the guards, who stepped closer to Chloe, placing a hand on her shoulder. Chloe whimpered. Give me the watch. Then I let her go. Or I have my men toss her into the Hudson. The current is strong tonight. Daehyun stepped forward, his body shielding Zuri slightly. Minji, look around. You're exposed. The police are already on their way. My father knows. Your father is an old man clinging to ghosts, Minji scoffed. He thinks honor still matters. He thinks blood loyalty means something. I'm building a new world, Daehyun. A world where information is the only currency. And that watch contains the banking codes for half the eastern seaboard's criminal underground. With that capital, I don't just run a clan. I run the city. It's over, Daehyun said calmly. Give it up. You're right. It is over, Minji smiled. It was a terrifying, victorious smile. Jihoon? Would you like to do the honors? Daehyun froze. He didn't turn around. He felt the cold metal of a gun barrel press against the base of his skull. Sorry, boss, Jihoon's voice came from behind him. It wasn't the voice of his best friend. It was the voice of a stranger, cold, calculated, and devoid of regret. But the payout on this is just too good. Retirement money. Island money. Zuri gasped, stumbling back. Jihoon? But you're his brother. Practically. Practicality is the keyword, Jihoon said, reaching into Daehyun's waistband and removing his gun. Chairman Choi is dying. Daehyun wants to turn the business into a charity organization. Where does that leave me? Teaching Taekwondo to toddlers? No thanks. Minji offered me a seat at the table. The text, Daehyun whispered, realizing the truth. The knife comes from the hand you hold. Your father always was perceptive, Jihoon sighed. Now, Zuri. The watch. Slide it over. Or I put a bullet in Daehyun's spine and we skip to the part where I take it from your corpse. Zuri looked at Daehyun, helpless with a gun to his head. She looked at Chloe, bound and terrified. She looked at the watch in her hand. The weight of the moment threatened to crush her. Okay, Zuri said, her voice trembling. Okay, you win. Just don't hurt him. She stepped forward, sliding the watch across the concrete. It skittered to a stop at Minji's feet. Minji bent down, picking it up with a triumphant smirk. She inspected the cracked screen. Finally. The code. What is it, Zuri? What unlocks the file? It's voice-activated, Zuri said softly. Voice-activated? Minji raised an eyebrow. Sophisticated for a street kid. What's the phrase? Zuri looked Minji dead in the eye. A slow, dangerous smile spread across her face, the same smile she'd worn when she hit a mercenary with a pepper grinder. The phrase is, system overload. Nothing happened for a second. Then, the floodlights surrounding the pier exploded. Before we proceed, smash that subscribe button to know what happens next, because Zuri Banks is about to level the playing field. It wasn't a bomb. It was a power surge. Zuri hadn't spent the drive over crying. She'd spent it texting an old friend from her chemistry days who now worked at the city's power grid. She'd timed the blackout to the second. Darkness swallowed the pier. No! Daehyun roared. He didn't need eyes to fight Jihoon. He'd sparred with him for 20 years. He dropped his weight, spinning and sweeping Jihoon's legs out from under him. The gun discharged into the air, the flash illuminating the chaos for a split second. Zuri didn't run. She sprinted toward Chloe. Minji! Zuri screamed into the dark. That watch doesn't have banking codes. It has a tracking chip. I led the FBI right to your doorstep, you fashion victim. You lying little witch. Minji shrieked from somewhere in the fog. Zuri reached Chloe, ripping the tape off her mouth. Run toward the car. Go. I can't feel my legs. Chloe sobbed. Then crawl. Zuri pulled out a pocket knife and slashed the ropes. A heavy body slammed into Zuri, knocking the wind out of her. It was Minji. The heiress was strong, trained in martial arts, and she was furious. She pinned Zuri to the concrete, hands closing around her throat. I will kill you myself. Minji hissed. Zuri clawed at Minji's hands, gasping for air. She kicked out, her sneaker connecting with Minji's shin, but the woman didn't budge. Black spots danced in Zuri's vision. Suddenly, Minji was yanked backward as if by a giant hook. Daehyun stood there, illuminated by the flashing red and blue lights of approaching sirens. He had Minji in a chokehold, his face a mask of absolute, terrifying calm. You touched her, Daehyun whispered into Minji's ear. You made a mistake. He didn't kill her. He didn't break her neck. He squeezed a pressure point on her shoulder, and Minji went limp, unconscious before she hit the ground. To the left, Jihoon was groaning on the ground, his knee shattered, handcuffed to a railing with his own zip ties. Zuri. Daehyun dropped Minji and rushed to where Zuri was coughing on the ground. He pulled her into his arms, checking her neck, her face, his hands shaking uncontrollably. Are you okay? Did she hurt you? I'm fine, Zuri rasped, leaning into him. Just remind me never to date a man with crazy exes again. Deal. Daehyun buried his face in her neck, holding her like she was the only solid thing in a spinning world. I'm so sorry, Zuri. I'm so sorry. Hey, she pulled back, cupping his face. We won. We actually won. Sirens wailed as NYPD cruisers and unmarked federal SUVs swarmed the pier. The watch lay on the ground, forgotten. By the way, Daehyun asked as the police swarmed Minji's unconscious form. Was there actually a tracking chip in the watch? Nope, Zuri grinned, though her lip was bleeding. It was just a broken watch. But Minji didn't know that. Bluffing is 90% of the game, right? Daehyun laughed, a sound of pure relief, and kissed her amidst the chaos of red and blue lights. You are terrifying, Zuri Banks. And I am completely yours. 1 year later, the Choi Foundation for Youth Arts was officially open. The ribbon-cutting ceremony in Queens was packed. There were no bodyguards, no threats, just kids running around with paint on their faces and music blasting from speakers. Daehyun stood on the steps, wearing a simple button-down shirt, looking 5 years younger. The weight of the underworld was gone. He had dismantled the syndicate, handing over the illegal operations to the authorities in a plea deal that stripped him of his criminal assets, but left him with his freedom and his life. He wasn't a billionaire anymore. He was just a man with a decent savings account and a lot of work to do. You look good, a voice said. He turned to Zuri. She was radiant in a yellow sundress, her hair loose and free. She held a stack of comic books, her own. The Waitress Warrior, her debut graphic novel, had just hit the bestseller list. I look tired, Daehyun smiled, wrapping an arm around her waist. Running a nonprofit is harder than running a crime family. More paperwork. And fewer bullets, Zuri reminded him, leaning her head on his shoulder. How's your dad? Grumbling in Connecticut, Daehyun chuckled. He says I've ruined the family name by becoming a philanthropist. But he secretly frames every newspaper clipping about the center. And Jihoon? Daehyun's smile faded slightly. 10 to 20 years. He sends letters. I haven't opened them yet. Maybe one day. Take your time. Zuri squeezed his hand. We have plenty of time. Chloe, now fully recovered and acting as the foundation's legal counsel, waved at them from the crowd, holding a glass of sparkling cider. Hey, lovebirds. Speech. The kids want a speech. Daehyun looked at the crowd, at the life he had built from the ashes of his past. Then he looked at Zuri, the woman who had walked past danger to save him, who had bluffed a crime lord with a broken watch, who had loved him enough to stay when she should have run. No speech, Daehyun said, taking her hand. Just this. He pulled her into a dip, kissing her deeply as the crowd cheered and the kids threw confetti. It wasn't a movie ending. It was better. It was real. They had walked through fire, survived betrayal, and come out the other side not unscathed, but stronger. As they pulled apart, breathless and laughing, Zuri looked at him with that same dazzling smile that had started it all in the ballroom of the Waldorf. So, she whispered, what do you want to do now, Daehyun? He looked at her, his eyes warm and full of peace. I want to get a cup of coffee, he said. And maybe watch you smile for the rest of my life. I can do that, Zuri promised. I can definitely do that. And that, my friends, is the power of love over legacy. If you cheered when Zuri bluffed Minji or cried when Daehyun chose peace over power, make sure you are subscribed to AfroSoul Love Tales for more stories that bridge cultures and break hearts.